Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful summer day for our third annual Banzai Back to School Bootcamp. We're so excited to have everybody here today. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Hopefully, you're still enjoying summer. It's way too hot to have school start, but if you are in school, you are in our thoughts and prayers, and we are super excited for you for the new school year. Couldn't be more excited to have everybody. We're going to let everybody kind of trickle in as it takes a little bit of time to get in from the waiting room, but it looks like we're getting most everybody. I'm your host, Brandon Christiansen. I'm the head of marketing here at Bonsai. Super excited to be here today and to introduce our first speaker here in a little bit. But before I do so, wanted to take care of a little bit of business. If we can move to the next, there we go. If you have any issues with your audio, make sure you check your Bluetooth settings. Sometimes you might be paired to the wrong device. But if you still have issues, we have the chat open up for all of the participants in the meeting today. So throw up any questions or concerns there with the audio. But also, if you have any questions, post them in the chat. We've got some moderators, myself, and some other Bonsai team members here to help field questions and post it throughout the session. In fact, I post the city and state that you're in. It's fun to see where everybody's located across the country. Um, and yes, you are muted by default. So yes, Emily, don't worry about that. Welcome in everybody. New York, Ohio. Oh, it's fantastic. Green Bay, go Packs. Love to see it. Lincoln, Nebraska, Virginia, Ohio. Love it. Good to see everybody. Yes, we have a packed session, packed schedule for today's boot camp, as you can see here. Super excited to launch with the opening session with Safe to Fail classrooms. And then we'll have our keynote following this with Dr. Wally Luckydo. And then the 12 o'clock session, no extra prep needed. That's going to be an exciting one as well. The 12:45, we're super excited to have Joel join us from Jumpstart. 1:30, we have the High Octane Engagement hosting reality fairs, a new product that we're excited to show everybody. 2:15, ready, set, a fully guided tour of Bonsai itself. So this will be great for some of our newer teachers. And then at 3 o'clock, our closing keynote, putting on your mask first, talking about our financial wellness app and how you can access and use some of those tools. So huge amount of content available for you all here today. We're super excited by it. And then, yeah, let's see. Let's see. Let's introduce our first speaker. I am so honored to be able to introduce Nikole to the session today. Nikole serves as the Director of Education at Banzai, where she oversees curriculum solutions aimed at instilling financial and life literacy skills in students across the United States. Nikole's role extends beyond curriculum design as she collaborates closely with educators to promote integration into classroom environments and meet the needs of teachers. She's very passionate about advocating for financial literacy in schools, and she promotes the importance of financial education at local, state, and national levels. She's a fantastic leader in our company, and we're so lucky to have her. So, Nikole, I will hand it over to you to talk about Safe to Fail classrooms.
Thank you so much, Brandon. As it always is with the first session, I feel like I might be having a little bit of tech wonkiness. So if anything pops up, if I'm lagging, if you can't hear me for any reason, make sure to throw it into the chat. Somebody can flag me down. Also, really quick on the sessions that Brandon was talking about, I know we have people from everywhere, and all of those times are mountain time. So doing a little bit of math. But you might need to, I mean, you're here, so you figured it out. But just a little note. Yes, thank you so much, Brandon. That was such a lovely introduction. And I want to start this session with a poll. So the reason we decided to kick off the Back to Camp with this particular presentation is because it validates the pedagogy behind Bonsai and the way that we have crafted our curriculum. And so we're going to get a little bit into that. You may have seen parts of this presentation before. It's something I'm really excited about, something I talk about a lot. But let's start with the most rigorous recent meta-analysis discovered what? So it's 76 randomized studies. They did over 160,000 students. Which moved more after a personal finance course? Was it the financial knowledge or financial behavior? So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to make your guesses, or if you know the answer, then that's great too. Okay, let's see. We've got, all right, almost everyone. There seems to be a trend. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it. Overall, so 69% of y'all said financial behavior moves more after a personal finance course. And I wonder, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the poll now. So 69% financial behavior, 31 financial knowledge. It is actually knowledge that moves more and behavior moves less. So we've seen this in a few studies. That meta-analysis is the biggest one that we've gathered this information from, but we've also started to see this in Utah. So Utah passed our financial literacy mandate in 2003. Utah is where I'm from. So I took a financial literacy course in high school, and we've had that mandate in place for quite a while now. Sorry, I had this little pop-up of like poll error. I took care of it. Anyway, uh, and now we can start to see what happens after a student takes one of those courses. And so we have a study from the Utah Treasurer Office, as well as that meta-analysis that I was talking about earlier. And we have found that knowledge moves consistently, but behavior less so. And actually, we have found that college attendance has begun to lag. And we kind of have seen that in our students, right? That college, the way that students are approaching college now is different than they did before. And there's so many things that relate to that. There was one that Utah in particular was like, hey, wait a second, because Utah has mandates in our curriculum about college attendance and also just like how education translates to income. So that was one that they flagged of being like, oh, we're teaching this thing, but college attendance is lagging. Uh, we have seen some evidence that credit behaviors improve, but we have not really seen a lot of evidence about saving and retirement from this data. We do see, however, that students can answer correctly test questions. So that's kind of where that knowledge piece comes from. So there's a few reasons for this. And two of them I think make a lot of sense, and you are probably thinking about it now as I'm talking. That first one is measurement windows. Knowledge you can test right after, right? You take a course, you have a final assessment, you can test and see, did I learn that thing or did I not? Do I know what a budget is or do I not? Um, Behavior plays out years later. How is the state going to know how I'm saving now after I took a financial literacy course well over a decade ago? So it's something that's like, are we tracking those students? Do we know what they're doing? There's also decision availability. There's some decisions that don't happen for a while. So you're learning in high school how to, budget your paycheck, but you might not actually have a job yet. So how do we know that those behaviors are actually getting impacted? But the other thing, and the thing that we can actually have some control over, is a gap. And that's where we feel Banzai can help the most with. So behavior takes practice. We know that. There's research that shows that. And yet, how are we going to practice budgeting and saving and practice a Roth versus the traditional? What does that mean? Like, how are you going to practice those things? And especially in the classroom. So we need the right conditions to make sure that that practice is happening. And that's what Bonsai tries to do. And that's what we're trying to give you in all of our resources today that we'll go over. So just an emphasis, we can't fix when the behavior is measured. We can't make life's first financial decisions arrive sooner, although some of that is starting to come about, right? With investing, students can invest more now than they could before with parental help. of course, but also things like not so great decisions are coming a lot sooner. I know you all are having to deal with that. The prediction markets, gambling, that's all coming into our classrooms right now. But the biggest thing that we can do is we can change what students are rehearsing before they face these decisions. So we can help them practice and see the real impacts of using a credit card poorly before they accidentally use a credit card poorly or make a poor decision. They can kind of know what the consequence feels like prior to that consequence hitting in real life when the stakes are much higher. So just a quick little plug for Banzai. We are ESSA certified. So we've had a third party go in, make sure that our game design, our games do have that, they move the needle for students, that it is effective. So we do have that proven rationale, proven effectiveness, and all of that ties back into some of the stuff that I'm talking about today. Before I move on, I just kind of want to take a pause. Brandon, are there any questions that I should talk about now, or I can keep going?
Nope, yep, we can keep going.
Okay, great. So the way that we have taken this pedagogy and applied it to Bonsai is a safe to fail classroom. So we think and we believe, and we've created resources for a classroom designed around decisions and not just memorizing facts. A classroom designed around practicing budgeting. How are they going to use this in the real life? Let's use it in the classroom first. So, the first step is that students have to struggle. There has to be a little bit of that productive friction, something that makes them not know right away what the right decision is. And we ask them to make a decision. And oftentimes it's the wrong one, and they don't know that yet. But then they experience an immediate consequence, and it's a visible consequence for that decision. So they tie that decision to the consequence, and then we help them with coached and guided reflection and continue on with instruction and reiteration. So, a little bit of evidence behind the method. I know I talked about that meta analysis, which is why we want to have the pedagogy that we do. We feel, and we've seen research that supports that we know students can learn what a budget is. We don't know if they can actually budget. So, I've talked about that, but now here's the evidence behind what we're trying to do. So, the first one is productive failure. Actually, these first two columns, the blue and the pink, these are both meta-analyses as well. So these are collections of a bunch of different studies that have proven these two things in different classrooms. So that first idea is productive failure. Failing first makes lessons stick. And all of the meta-analyses that went into this are very simple. It's just two groups. You ask a group of students to try and solve a tricky word problem before giving them any lesson on how to specifically solve that problem. And you ask another group of students to solve that problem after you gave them instruction on it. And what they found is that months later, the students that didn't know and had to try and figure it out first, once they had the instruction, they remembered it longer. It stayed with them longer. So that's the first meta-analysis. The second one is the idea of simulation-based learning, or you might hear get gamified education. I know that's a big topic in ed tech and also just education generally. Practicing in the classroom, it really does help. So that's games, it's simulations, it's role play. Those are things that help students kind of imagine they're in this situation, imagine how to approach some kind of scenario. So that's the other beat that Bonsai has really built our resource on. This last study, psychological safety, the biggest study in that was actually took place in a hospital. And and some of you may know this already, it's kind of like one of those big psychological hallmark studies, but they studied two different groups of nurses, and they had them self-report on how well they are doing. And the group that was more honest about their failures, actually from the patient's side, was doing a lot better than the group that was saying they were doing really well. And they did more research into this, and they discovered that when someone feels safe to fail and talk about their failure and that is not punished, that psychological safety it gives them a place to really learn. When they're not feeling judged, they'll keep trying and they'll keep applying their best effort. So those are some of the things that we've based Bonsai on. And four parts of this method that you'll see in all of the resources we talk about today. The first is authentic stakes. Decision before instruction is the second. Visible consequences. And then structured reflection is the way to end this safe to fail method. So I'm going to go really quickly through these. I can distribute the slides following our webinar, but I also know that I can be verbose and I like to talk about this and we don't have all the time in the world, right? But really quickly, authentic stakes is one of the parts of this method that I enjoy talking about the most because you'll see right here two scenarios. On the left, there's this kind of generic scenario, right? Lena saves $50 a week from babysitting. She wants a phone that costs $800. How long will it take her to save up? This is a great question. These are the kinds of questions that we see all the time in financial wellness and financial literacy. But at the end of the day, it is just a math question, right? And then you look at this other one. Maya is 17. She just got a job offer. It's 20 hours a week at $14 an hour through her senior year. Those hours currently go to varsity track, AP stats, and sleep. Should she take it? And in this one, yeah, there's the math. We can figure out how much she'll make or what her gross income will be. But the question isn't how much she'll make. The question is it worth it? And we don't know Maya, right? But the student can kind of start to imagine like, there is no right answer here. And all of these questions have competing values. This feels real. What am I going to do if I'm in this situation? And if you ask one student, it's going to be different than if you ask another. So that's kind of an example of authentic stakes. And again, you'll see that play out in the resources we talk about throughout the day today. The other decision before instruction I kind of touched on a little bit is struggling a little bit with something first and then introducing the instruction. So you'll see that in Banzai Games. You'll also see that in our new lesson plans that Natalie will be going over later today. The other important part of this method is a visible consequence that happens in real time. So if a student correctly defines a checking account and they see, a couple days later, they got an A on that quiz, they're like, oh, great, I did great on the quiz. And that's it. But imagine a student that is asked to run a simulated bank themselves. And a customer comes up to them and says, I really want an account where I can access my money super quickly. And I don't really care if it's building interest. And they recommend a CD or they recommend a savings account. And then the customer's like, I didn't realize I only had 6 transfers from my saving account this month. I said I wanted something really liquid and they get mad. And then they have to feel that loss in a game. It could be as catastrophic as their whole fictional bank fails. And that's a real-time consequence. And now they're like, oh, that's a checking account, right? Also, that's a teaser for our banking game that we just love so much. And then the fourth part, and one of the most important parts of this method is the reflection at the end. So after students play a bonsai game, go through a bonsai lesson plan, we need to ask, what decision did you make? Why did you make that decision? What surprised you? What would you do differently now? And that's going to help whatever emotional response they had to making the wrong or right decision in the moment last longer because they're reflecting on it and they're thinking about it, right? So I really need to kind of groove through these slides, but just a reminder, it's that stakes, decision, visible consequence, and then the structured reflection. So I have some examples, and again, I will give these slides out so you can kind of see how these are played out in the bonsai games. Authentic stakes in our finance summer camp, realistic jobs with trade-offs. Time, money, if you pick one job over the other, maybe that other job starts with lower pay, but you have more opportunities for advancement. Those kinds of what really is the right decision right now. Um, and a good example of decision before instruction is our stock market showdown game. We're really asking students to look at stocks and figure them out and try to guess which ones are going to be the best for their portfolio. And we don't really know the future, right? And of course, that's real life too. Visible consequences, that is throughout all of our games. One of those life scenarios, the example that I have here is they skip renter's insurance, their apartment floods, it's catastrophic. And then, of course, that structured reflection. So at the end of every lesson plan, and Natalie will go over this later today, and at the end of our games, we have a question or an assessment that asks them to think about what they just played, the decisions they made, and what did they learn from it. So lesson plan structure that Natalie will go over, we'll always start with that struggle first, and then some kind of discussion or activity, practicing it, and then a debrief at the end. So we're really trying to put the safe to fail method and the research behind it into every single Banzai resource that we provide. Some of them are more straightforward, and especially if you use them as a standalone worksheet or something like that. But you'll see this methodology throughout the Banzai platform. So really quickly before I end, though, I think it's important to note when productive failure stops being productive because this is such an important part of the safe to fail classroom is being safe to fail. So failure is not humiliation. So a lot of our games have a win-loss element, but the idea is what they're learning in those games while they're playing them, not whether or not they win or lost, right? Don't let students stay stuck. So if there is a bell ringer and you have a student really struggling with it and they're starting to get frustrated or they're starting to get emotional, that's the time to step in. This is no longer productive. It's no longer going to stick with them. Now it's going to start turning into something that's a negative experience. We don't want that. The other part is to not skip the reflection. If we don't reflect on what the failure, like where it came from, then it's just we're confused. And then the last part is to not ask for real family numbers, especially in group settings. Goals are always okay. If you have a savings goal, if you want something to do. And I think that there are ways that you could do this in a way that's not unsafe, but just as a general rule of thumb, fictional scenarios that are authentic, but not so close to home that it starts to feel shameful or unsafe, is something that we really try to promote. And that is what I had today. And I feel like I have basically taken up the whole time. So, Brandon, I'm going to throw it back to you to kind of give us an exciting announcement that I snuck over to prior.
Okay, I'm jumping in. I'm not Brandon, but he somehow got booted. So I'm here. This is Natalie Hollingshead. I'm our education programs lead. I'm just here to tell you about our National Educator Conference Scholarship. So if you attend 2 or more bootcamp sessions, you're going to be automatically be entered for a scholarship to the Jumpstart National Educator Conference. So this is a 17th annual event. It's really amazing. This year it's in November, the 6th through 8th at the Gaylord's Rocky Resort. This scholarship is worth $2,000 and includes your full registration, 2 hotel nights, and 6 conference meals. So just attend. You've already attended this session. Attend at least one more, and then you will be entered into that drawing. Also wanted to tell you, next slide, please, Nikole, about our upcoming keynote. So this is going to be happening at 10:45. So time for you to have a little break, grab a snack, grab a drink, and join us for our keynote session. This is on conquering money stress in the classroom from veteran and award-winning teacher, Dr. Wally T. Lucky Do. Wally's fantastic. You're not going to want to miss this session. And he'll be talking about his Money Secrets project. And I guess I'll keep the rest a secret, and you'll have to join us to hear about what Wally has to say. And just wanted to remind you that you can earn free PD credit from attending this session. You'll get a link tomorrow to your email that you can click and just have to fill out a short form, let us know how we did, and you'll automatically receive a certificate that you can then submit to your district or however that process is. And then if you want to walk through for using Banzai, go ahead and take a picture of this QR code, follow the link, and you sign up for a free personalized demo with our teacher support team. We have all sorts of help for you, setting up your classroom, setting up an account, and whatnot. So that's it for now, folks. We look forward to seeing you in another about 10 minutes for our keynote address.